Okay, this is an instructional video on how to make a vest. The pattern that we will be using is called New Look, and the pattern number is 6659. It has several sizes in it, and we're going to be making view C. And the first thing I want to talk about is I'm going to turn, the front of the pattern shows you views with fabric types, just so you can get an idea of what you want to do. But on the back side is where you actually find out what types of fabrics that you can use. This is pretty standard on all patterns. The notions that you will need and the yards of fabric that you would need to buy, depending on the size. And you'll see across the pattern they'll have the sizes at the top, and then they'll have the different views down the side, and you pick which one you're going to do and which size fits you, and then you find out the yardage that you must buy. When you're making a vest, don't forget you do need to buy a separate piece of lining. You can self-line it with the same fabric, or preferably use a fabric that's kind of shiny and slippery. The vest goes on easier. Okay, the first thing I want to tell you is that when you're using a pattern that's already been used before, pretty much your pattern pieces are going to look like this. They've already been used and kind of folded up real tight, put back in. So the first thing you want to do is take your pattern pieces that are all wrinkled, take them to the ironing board and lightly iron them out so that you don't have any wrinkles. If you don't do that, there's a good chance you're going to skew your garment and it won't hang right. If you pick out a piece of fabric and you want to always rinse it and dry it to remove added chemicals that they put in the fabric, you always want to rinse it and dry it, and if it comes out real wrinkled and it's not supposed to be, then you want to make sure you iron that as well before you put the pieces on. You put your fabric on grain before you lay it down. You can do this two ways. One way would be just hold the fabric up by the selvage edges and make sure that there's no wrinkle across this area, the fold. Or another way you can do it is actually take a pair of scissors, one of your tools, and what you can do is just snip a piece in the selvage here, pull it open, and one of these strings like this is going to crop up, that's going across, and you're going to pull that all the way out, and that's going to leave a little line. Then you cut that. That perfectly puts your fabric back on grain. You do want your fabric as close as possible on grain so your garment's not skewed. Some basic tools that you need for this sewing project are a pair of shears, ruler, tracing wheel. This is a seam ripper. Hopefully you won't need that. You don't make mistakes. Then your bobbin case for your sewing machine, thread, tape measure, and some pins. Okay, your instruction sheet that is in the package will look like this. They're pretty much all the same. They're going to again show the views, but this time just in black sketches. They're going to show the actual pieces that are used. You'll have some general instructions, and it you know it's good for you to take time and read these things and these markings, what they mean. Then when you come to your cutting layout, you want to pick out, because it's usually going to have several views. This one has A, B, C, D, and then there's a collar. One's collarless, one has a collar. So we're going to be using view C. And another thing is you got to know if your fabric was 45 or 60 inch wide, because they'll usually show you two views. And if you use a different view from the size fabric you bought, sometimes you'll mess yourself up and you'll have to go buy more fabric. So you find the view that you're going to sew, and then you find the layout pattern. Okay, now you want to, whichever direction you're looking at it, that's how you want to lay it out on the table. So I'm going to move my tools over, and I'm going to take my sheet, since I'm oriented on this side, because I'm looking at it from this way, and you'll see it says fold and selvage edges. Okay, the fabric has been laid down with the selvage edges, that's these bound manufactured edges there, and the fold is on this side. So now the fabric is facing me exactly like it is on the pattern. Okay, I'm going to follow the instructions of how they say to lay it out. And now another reason why it's real good to read these notations here, if the fabric is, if the pattern piece is supposed to be face down, then it'll be shaded, and if it's faced up, it'll be white. Okay, so this piece is intended to be face down because it's shaded. And you can notice on the back there's some helps here. They do have a notation with these little arrows. It says place on center fold. So this is fold, and this is supposed to be placed on the center fold. Okay, so you lay that down on the fold, and be careful not to follow paper that you see extended out. That's not the cutting lines. The cutting lines are where the lines are. You move it down to the end of the fabric as close as you can. Make sure you know that it's not too short. Okay, the pinning techniques pretty much the same as all pinning. You don't have to worry about grain line in this piece because it's put on a fold. So all you need to do is worry about that you cut it, since this one has so many sizes. This has a 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and 18. We're going to make an 16, which is this line here. You pin, putting your pin in and back out, and just to the cutting line, and you stop. Don't go past it. If you hit that with your scissors without knowing that you're going to get it, you're going to dull your scissors. So just keep it pins right to where it's going to be cut. When you hit a dart looks like a small triangle, but the way you pin that is the same thing. You go in, you come back out, but this time you're going to extend because you want to cut around that. Okay, so if I don't think you'll be able to see this, but you got to pretend that you see this, okay, which is a dart. So when I cut this, I'm going to cut here, and I'm going to cut here. When I get to this dart, I'm going to stop and go around that pin. That is for you to place pieces together. So it's very important that you don't cut that off, or you won't know where to place your pieces. Okay? Now, the next part I'm going to show you is if you have a piece that's not on a fold, then you're going to have an item that looks like this. And what that is straight grain. Okay? The grain of the fabric runs parallel to the selvage. You just have to memorize that and remember it. This is your selvage, so that means your grain runs this way. In order to make sure that because you can't eyeball this, you have to make sure it's exact. What you do is you take this line, you put your tape measure there, you go to the end of the selvage, and the very end is 5 1/2 on this one. Now I go here, and it's 5 1/8. Okay, so what you got to do is move it till you get it the same. So you measure it again. Okay, now I'm going to move this side, and you'll have to play with it a little bit. Okay, now that's 5 1/2, and that's 5 1/2. Okay, once they're the same, before you start pinning all around, you go ahead and place your pins over this grain mark. And that's so if you get to moving, it doesn't move on you. And then you go ahead and finish the rest of your pinning. And now I'm going to talk to you about tracing and markings, but I'm going to tell you that some people do them differently. Some people will make their tracings before they actually cut it out. Some people will cut their fabric piece out and then make their tracings. It's just your personal preference. I'm going to pretend that this is a piece of tracing paper. As you can see here, we've got some buttonholes that are marked. If this was real tracing paper, I would put this under here, and then I would trace with a tracing wheel to make the mark. Okay, now you're going to need on this particular piece four pieces cut out of the fabric. If you don't want to make those markings 4 times, then what you do, right now we're fixing to cut out 2 of the 4, you would cut it all the way out, then you would make your tracings, and you would pick up the fabric, all the fabric up, put that under there, lay a piece of fabric down, put that there. Then you make your tracings, and that way it'll make 2 tracings at one time. Okay, so you may want to, if you only have to trace it once, you may do it before you cut it out. But if you know you got to trace several pieces, like this one's 4, you may want to do, that after you actually cut it out. Okay, you lay out the rest of the pieces according to the pattern, and then you cut it all out, and then we will have video 2 as a follow-up.